to the temple. But that's we're going to see why we might have cut off right before we enter the land of Israel. Okay, I'm going to reshare the screen and we're going to go a little bit further here. Okay. So this is how the Bavli takes it. And I want to recommend, Josh Culp has done a lot of work on the Haggadah. He has a wonderful set of essays in what's called the Shechter. I highly recommend. He did some work on this section, and I'm credit to his research on this. This is the Bavli in Masechet Pesachim, Matchil Bignut and Misayim B'Shevach. So now the Bavli asks, my Bignut, what's the degradation? So we have a couple options. Rav Amar, Mitchila Uvdei Avodat Gilulim Hayu Avotenu, or in our Haggadah, Mitchila Uvdei Avodat Zara Hayu Avotenu. In the beginning, our ancestors were idol worshippers. And in the printed versions of the Bavli, Shmuel Amar, but really, as Josh has shown, all the manuscripts say either Rava or Rabba. Rava says, Avadim Hayinu. Okay, so this is the classic sort of debate in the Haggadah of what's the Gedut, what's the Shevach. Rav says it's idol worship, and Shmuel, but really Rava says it's that we were slaves. If it's idol worship, right, then the Gedut might be something that we have responsibility for. If someone enslaved me, I'm not responsible. I mean, you might sort of blame the victim, but fundamentally someone else is oppressing me. That's the Gedut. But for idol worship, now someone might be oppressing me there, forcing me to worship idols, but fundamentally it's a little bit more of, I'm taking that on myself. Mitchila, I was an idol worshiper, and then I came out and recognized God. Rava saying, Avadim Hayinu, and Rava later on in the next page says, Sarich Sheomar Ve'otanu Hotzi Misham, and God took us out of there, which is in the middle of that section we were just looking at above from Devarim. So you could see two narratives here. Rava says the Genut is Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves and God took us out. That's the freedom from, we just were freed from the Egyptians. And Rav says we started as idol worshipers. And what's the Shevach? We recognize that God is our God. Maybe we recognize that at the sea, at the splitting of the sea. That's the debate about Revelation. One of the Revelation places, in addition to Sinai, was God appearing at the sea. So maybe that's the culmination of the Shevach, and those are two different journeys. Now, what we end up doing is, and this is kind of amazing, this is, I just bolded for you, the Otanu Otzi Misham, that's Rava's version. But I want to look at one thing for a second. If you look at the Rif, Al-Fasi, Yitzhak Al-Fasi was one of the early commentators, halacha commentators on the Talmud, says something incredible. He says, "Marchil b'gnut u'misayim b'shevach." My gnut. He's just quoting the Talmud. What is the degradation? Amar Rav mitchila uvdei avodah zarah u'Shmuel amar avadim hayinu. So he brings both of the opinions. Rav's in the beginning we were idol worshippers. Shmuel, here his version. Shmuel says we were slaves. And va'idna avdina kitarvayu. But we do both of them. And this is kind of amazing because usually the job of a posek, of a halachic decider, is to say, well, we've got a debate between Rav and Shmuel, or Rav and Rava, and we got to pick one. That's the way we did. We're the poskim. We make choices, and we're actually going to pick one. And the Rif says, actually, we're not going to pick. We're going to say them both. So this is another clue that the Haggadah is actually running through multiple versions of what the story is from Genut to Shevach. We're not limited to, we're going to go with Rav's story, or we're going to go with Shmuel Rava's story. Actually, we're going to say them both, which is kind of crazy. Now, I want to play up one other aspect of the Rav side. I'm going to scroll up here for a second. Rav is the opinion that shows up in the Yerushalmi. In the Yerushalmi, as we said yesterday, the Yerushalmi is another, the Eretz Yisrael tradition is another tradition of the Haggadah, not any of the traditions we have, no matter what geographic right you're using. We're all using a version of the Babylonian tradition, but there was an Eretz Yisrael tradition of the Haggadah, and there was no debate. In that one, there wasn't Rava's opinion of Avadim Hayinu Bayotzinu Misham. Rather, it was just Rav Amar. Rav said, Katchila, as in the beginning, Be'ever hanahar yashvu avotechem, va'akach et avichem et Avraham me'ever hanahar. This is Rav's opinion in Yerushalmi of what it means to be Ovdei Avodah Zarah. In the beginning, we were on the other side of the river. That is to say, we were idol worshipers. We were the Aramean, right? We were across the river. That's what the Arameo Vedavi. We were wandering Arameans. We're on the other side of the river, where our ancestors came from. And what happened? I took your father Abraham from across the river and brought him to the other side. So here we have a Marchil B'Gnut Misayim B'Shevach that actually is entirely taking place before we end up in Egypt at all, right? It's literally, what's the Gnut and Shevach? We used to be idol worshipers, and then Abraham recognized God. That's the journey that we're going through. And that's kind of an amazing option of thinking about what the journey is. The journey was over before we even got to the Egypt story. So you can see why Shmuel Rava's opinion of Avadim Ayinu and taking us out of Egypt from slavery, that works for the Haggadah. If you stop a Jew on the street and say, what's the story of the Haggadah? They're going to say, we were slaves in Egypt and we came free. But here we have a story where the entire thing, it's not just about we were idol worshipers and we came to recognize God in the Exodus. Rather, we were idol worshipers and Abraham came to recognize God, and that's it. End of story. So that's kind of an amazing journey, which actually is the old version of the Haggadah that was used in Eretz Yisrael. And this is exactly the way the Haggadah worked, which is to say, now let's see if I can do this. I want to show you, I want to broadcast for you. Okay, so it says in the old Eretz Yisrael Haggadah, Mani Shana Alayla Zem Mikol Aylot. They read through for them, they only had 2 or 3 questions. And then Lefi Dato Shel Ben Aviv Melamdo, that's just quoting our Mishnah, teach the child the level of it they can handle. Machil B'Genudum Misayim B'Shevach, Ve'omer, Ve'ever HaNahar Yashvu Avotechem. And let me see if I can do this, if I can pin my own, phone, I'm going to show you the actual version of this. Maybe someone can help me here. Okay, Elise is helping me. This is from the Goldschmidt Haggadah. This is, you see that there? This is Daniel Goldschmidt, who published a critical edition of the Haggadah in the early 1960s. He published the oldest version of the Haggadah they ever found in the Geniza, and this is it. And it was like not illuminated or pretty, but you can see right there, right in the middle, the Omer, the Ever Hanar Yashvu Avotechem. Okay, so that's the oldest version of the Haggadah. I'm going to go back to my screen share now. That's the oldest version of the Haggadah that just has moving from idol worship to the other side of the river. Okay, so again, what are we summarizing here? We're summarizing the possibilities of going from Gnut to Shevach, moving from degradation to praise, and now we have an option where that is just moving as idol worshipers to Abraham, doing that. Okay, I'm moving on a little bit. I'm just showing you, if you look at the Eretz Yisrael version, by the way, those of you who are looking to shorten your Seder this year, go with the Eretz Yisrael version. You can see in the comparison here, our Babylonian version has a lot of other pieces, but the Eretz Yisrael version basically just follows the Mishnah. Not surprising. Manishtana, we're going to do that on Thursday, which are the questions that the Mishnah says or we'll see if they're questions or not, but whatever they are, statements, questions that the Mishnah says to say, and then they go straight to Vidoresh. They go to the Arameo Vedavi. Whereas in the Babylonian version, we have all the other stuff. We have Halach Manya, we have the 5 sages, we have the 4 children, we have all this other stuff. Okay, and now that's the plus of the Eretz Yisrael is that it's shorter if you're going for short, but the plus of the Bavel one, which I think is significant, is it uses multiple stories as the anchor for the Haggadah. That is to say, the reason it's longer is because moving from Gnut to Shevach is not so simple. And when the Rif says, when the halachic decider says, we say them both, we tell both stories, it's an open invitation to, this night is going to be about telling a story over and over again. One version of Gnut to Shevach, a second version of Gnut to Shevach. We're going to run through all the options, and that's going to allow us to go through the night and last until morning. Okay. This is the quote Me'ever Hanar, which comes at the end of the book of Joshua. And if you're interested, and you have the source sheet, you can read the entire speech here from Joshua that runs through the full history. Again, the Haggadah, even it's not clear. I mean, we have this quoted also in the Babylonian Haggadah, and there they cut it off, and when we go down to Egypt, but that is not where the story ends here. The story goes through and delivers them back to the land, and they fight the wars, and now they're at the end of the battles of Joshua, and essentially culminating with arriving in Eretz Yisrael. So you can see why Babylonian versions, people sitting in Babylonia, weren't so excited about running a Seder that culminated with landing up in the land of Israel, because they actually weren't in the land of Israel. So that wasn't going to be a compelling story, perhaps, or it was a painful story. We used to be in the land of Israel, now we're exiled again. And in that way, it might have been hard to say. So let's just focus on God took us out of Egypt. That's something that we can all identify with, because even Babylonia isn't as bad as Egypt. Okay, what am I going to show you in our last few minutes here? So just going back to another part of the Haggadah that we say, Yadoa Teda, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. That's another move from Ganut to Shevach. You're wondering, like, why are these random pieces in the Magid section there? Just look for a storyline that's going from Ganut to Shevach, and we'll see that there is some option there. We saw this already yesterday. Halach Ma'anya starts with also a Ganut to Shevach. This year we are here. Next year we'll be in the land of Israel. This year we're slaves. Next year we'll be free. And that's another version of we're running. Those are two, just to be clear, those are two versions of Ganut to Shevach that are packed into Halach Ma'anya. One is a geographical one. We're here, and then next year we'll be in the land of Israel. And the other is the spiritual one. The physical one. We were slaves, and next year we'll be free. What's missing from that are all the other ones, like we used to be idol worshipers, and now we've come out the other side as monotheists, believing in God, or we used to be poor, and now we have abundance, or we used to not feed other people, now we feed other people. That might be the line before it. They're all the ways in which we can see the move from Ganut to Shevach. I mean, you could even argue, Halach Ma'anya, that bread is the Ganut, and Kol Dichvin, and now we're going to feed everybody, is the Shevach. We started with a bread that is so poor and just a piece of bread, and now we have so much food that we can feed everybody else. And I'm going to, I'm going to add one last piece here, which is to say, here's a quiz. Where does the word Shevach show up in the Haggadah? You know the word shows up like later on, Yishtabach, we said when we get to the way end of the Haggadah. But actually, I'm thinking of another place where it shows up, and I'm going to show you that as the way we're going to end. We say in the Haggadah, Avadim ayinu lefaro b'Mitzrayim vayotzienu Adonai lenu misham b'yad chazaka u'bizroa nituyah. That again is Rabba Shmuel's version of the Ganut to Shevach. If God hadn't taken it out, we would still be slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. Even if we were all wise and knowledgeable and elders in the knowledgeable sense, and we all knew the Torah, mitzvah, we all have to tell it as a commandment for us to tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim. And how does that section end? Whoever increases in telling the story of going out from Egypt, they are mishubach. They have shevach. So here we have a final version for this morning of what it means to go to praise, which is to say praise is expanding on the story. The story itself is the praise, and being able to tell it and go on is an expression of the opposite of degradation. Degradation is one time-limited, I only can say a verse. Expanse is, and praise is, I can go on and on, call him our belisaper. I can go on and tell the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, Hareza Mishubach. This is the Shevach that I'm arriving at, which is the Shevach of free people, which is the ability to go on and say what we want to say about the story. So to sum up, my desire for us is to think about, don't be overwhelmed by the Haggadah, by the Magid section. It is simply trying to get at the core journey from Gnut to Shevach. It's trying that in multiple ways. We ourselves could try that however we want to. And I invite us to use this lens as a way of thinking about our own journey from Gnut to Shevach when we go through Magid this year. Tomorrow morning at this slot, my colleague, Rabbi Ethan Tucker, will be teaching about the 4 sons, and looking forward to seeing you then.